Data and analytics. Think of it this way, and I like to throw this slide in there because I think it's very, very helpful. Data is a collection of information. It's a lot of noise. You find it in your spreadsheets, in your CSV files, however you have store your data. It's a lot of great information. It's noisy, but it's good information. It doesn't really mean a whole lot until we apply some sort of analytics to it. So analytics is simply making sense of all the information that we have. And pretty much all of you on the call, you guys are all sitting on gold mines of analytics. You're sitting on a lot of data, but how much of that data can we actually turn into real actionable information from an analytics standpoint? So it's always really nice to understand the difference between data and analytics. And one of the things that I find quite a bit is that there's always a little bit more in the data that could be turned into highly valuable analytics than a lot of people realize. And some of my clients that I work a little bit more with, we kind of go in and we'll dig around a little bit in the data, on the data side, and say, oh, well, what about this? What about that? Had you ever looked at this? Had you ever looked at that? And those tend to be data elements that are not normally analyzed and looked at, and I'll talk about a couple of those a little bit later. So there's levels and types of analytics, and this is sort of for those of you who, if your worst class as a college undergrad was your stats class, don't worry, I used to teach that class for several years, and people hate it. But what's interesting is that if you look at the two terms on the left of both the bullets here, so exploration and description, probably rings a bell for some people. So the levels of analytics are, the first level is sort of the exploration and description, and that's taking the data and moving it into analytics in the sense that, well, I have all this information in this big fat CSV patient file. What is it? What's actually there? What's useful? What's not useful? So exploration and description is basically going in there and systematically, as soon as we're applying analytics, what we're doing is we're taking what we call unsystematic, one way of looking at it is we take unsystematic error, which is basically all the noise and information, applying some low-level descriptive statistical analyses, systematizing it, and now we're turning it into systematic information that we can use. So we want to explore and discover and see what's actually there. A big part of front-end analytics on the exploration and description side is to not only see what is in the data, but what is not in the data. Often we find that there are missing things in data sets. I'm not talking about missing data for particular variables that are already there, but there's some fields that just aren't there. Oh, we don't have date of first service. We don't have the dates in this particular patient's file of when they came in for those labs that preceded the particular surgical procedure, those types of things. So we also want to find out what may be missing, what might not be in the data that we either need or would really want to have for analytical purposes. And then once we have gone through the exploration and description side of things, then we can move on to the the higher mid-level confirmation, or what we call confirmatory and inferential analyses. And that means we can run our predictive models, we can go ahead and build whether they're descriptive or inferential, clustering and segmentation, and so on and so forth. So those are pretty much that would have been, from an undergrad stats class standpoint, that would have been the confirmational and inferential stuff. That's what you did near the end of the class. And if you passed the class, that's basically what you did, is you did some confirmatory analytics, you did some inferential analytics, and then you passed the class and moved on with your college career.